Over the course of history in the Zelda franchise, Link has been accompanied on his journeys by many different partners. It all started with Navi the fairy from Ocarina of Time, who was mainly just there to remind you what you were doing over and over again, but otherwise she lacked a strong personality and just wasn't very memorable. Still, the idea of giving Link a constant companion was very well received, and Nintendo continued to iterate on the concept and have done so with every entry since. Some companions have been great, some have been forgettable, but if you ask a Zelda fan who their favorite was, 9 times out of 10, they are going to say Midna from The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess. So, why is Midna so beloved? Well, here on Character Study, we're going to delve a bit deeper into this beloved companion and root out just what it is that has made her stand so far above the rest. Up until The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword, Twilight Princess was the most story-heavy Zelda game in the franchise. Midna goes through quite a long journey over the course of the game, so what I'm going to do here is make a brief but complete summary of her journey. Princess Midna, seen here in her true form, is a member of the Twilight, a race of people who exist in an alternate dimension from the Hyrule we all know. As the princess of her people, Midna was next in line for the throne, but a servant of her family, named Zant, coveted her future role. On his own, Zant was weak, but after coming into contact with Ganondorf, the main villain of the series, Zant was given the power he needed. With this newfound power, Zant usurped the throne, and as a form of final insult, used his magic to alter Midna's body into that of a puny imp. Horrified by her new form, Midna fled, giving up the kingdom in the process. However, she was not completely out yet, as she then came up with a plan for taking back her rightful position. Midna hoped to assemble an artifact known as the Fused Shadow, an item that she knew would allow her to control the same terrifying shadow magic of her ancestors. And with this power, she could defeat Zant and his army. However, the Fused Shadow had already been broken into 4 pieces, but luckily, Midna possessed one. She donned this piece as a mask, and then set out into the land of Hyrule to find the other 3. By the time that Midna arrived in Hyrule, it had already been invaded by Zant and surrendered by Princess Zelda. This made things a lot more difficult than Midna was hoping, but fortunately, shortly after arriving, she witnessed Link, the protagonist of the game, being sucked into the twilight that was infecting Hyrule. As his body also changed and he took the form of a wolf, Midna recognized this as the fulfillment of a legend among her people. Midna approached the hero, who had taken the form of a divine beast, so that she could use him to help her retrieve the 3 missing pieces of the Fused Shadow in exchange for her helping him rescue his friends from Zant's minions. Together, Link and Midna traveled Hyrule, successfully retrieving the missing pieces. However, shortly after achieving this goal, Zant appeared before them in a surprise attack. Aware of what they had been doing, Zant easily took the 3 pieces of the Fused Shadow back before preparing to finish off Midna once and for all. Fortunately, Link jumped in to save her, and although she was still critically injured, they were able to escape. With the weakened Midna in Link's care, he safely delivered her to Princess Zelda, who, after recognizing her as the true princess of the Twilight Realm, granted her her very soul in order to save her life. The actions of Link and Zelda had a profound effect on Midna, who now realized that she was not just fighting for her world, but for Hyrule as well. Together, Link and Midna set out again, this time to reassemble the Mirror of Twilight that was originally being used as a bridge between the 2 dimensions. After assembling all of the pieces, they were able to successfully travel to the Palace of Twilight and confront Zant, and after a long battle, they came out victorious. After his defeat, Zant taunted Midna, informing her that she would never get her true body back while Ganondorf still lived. In response, Midna utilized the full power of the Fused Shadow to finish him off once and for all. With Zant gone, Link and Midna turned their attention to the true originator of these events, Ganondorf. Arriving at Hyrule Castle, the 2 confronted Princess Zelda, who had been possessed by Ganondorf while she was lacking her soul. Fortunately, they were able to rescue Zelda and defeat Ganon, who appeared in his beast form. However, right when they thought that everything was over, Ganon reappeared yet again, and stronger than before. In an effort to save both of their lives, Midna used her powers to warp Zelda and Link out of the castle, and took on Ganon all by herself using the power of the Fused Shadow. As the castle itself was consumed in this massive showdown, Midna was slain by Ganondorf. As he taunted Link and Zelda with her broken helmet, the 2 battled him next using their full force, and together this time, successfully killed him. Even though this action would have broken Midna's curse, their victory was, unfortunately, too late. However, this was not the end for Midna. In appreciation of her heroic deeds throughout Hyrule, the Light Spirits, which Link and Midna had restored during the course of their journey, united to bring Midna back to life, and this time she reappeared in her natural form. After a touching reunion of Midna and Link, the three heroes traveled to the Mirror of Twilight so that Midna could finally return to her world. However, right before going through the portal, Midna decided to shatter the mirror, breaking the only link left between the two dimensions. With the words, "See you later," to Link, Midna stepped through the portal and disappeared from Hyrule forever. Midna's story alone is about as long as what I intended each episode of this series to be. However, I felt the story was important enough for her to include it in as much detail as I gave here, because I feel that it is really one of the stronger stories told in the entire series. As we learned in Skyward Sword, cool actions alone don't make a great character. So let's move right along to our next topic. When it comes to strong personalities for a companion of Link, Midna is the goddamn poster child. At the start of the game, it's pretty obvious that Midna simply does not give a damn about Link, his world, his friends, or any of his shit. You can't really blame her. She had just come off being kicked off her throne and changed into a minuscule version of herself. In short, she was pissed off, and she was willing to do just about anything to amass power, get back to her country, and absolutely destroy the usurpers and their army. If that sounds familiar, it probably should, because Midna is basically Hyrule's own version of Daenerys Targaryen. Where are my dragons? In the early game, Midna is just barely hiding this massive amount of anger below the surface. She bargains with Link and acts falsely sweet, but she really doesn't care about him. And she doesn't really care about Zelda either. She kind of treats Link like a toy at first, as if he were just a disposable soldier to her that she'd be willing to replace if he falls. However, during the course of their journey to retrieve the pieces of the fused shadow, very slowly, Midna starts to change. She begins to show a bit more confidence in Link and becomes more appreciative for all the help that he's giving her. After their first confrontation with Zant and having her own life being saved by Link and Zelda, Midna's appreciation continues to build, and she enters the start of her full-on character arc. Even though Midna starts out the game blinded by her own anger, as the game continues from here, we get to see that she is, at heart, a very caring person. She's certainly still a little bit selfish, as she only came to be this way thanks to the things that Link and Zelda did for her, but you can tell that she's ready to have their back, just like they have hers. And she shows this devotion by dying for them. Then, after giving her life to save them and coming back, in the final scene of Twilight Princess, just from the way that she talks and looks at Link, you can tell that she still wants to stay with him. It could be argued that she has developed some romantic feelings for Link, and I certainly don't think that's out of the question, but whether she's crushing hard on him or just getting mushy, there's no doubt that she doesn't want to say goodbye. And this is where we can see that she has changed. The old Midna probably would not have destroyed the mirror. It's actually questionable whether she would have really been a good ruler or not. However, by the end of the game, she has matured quite a bit. At this point, she knows that as long as the two dimensions are connected by the mirror, more trouble will come to either side. So, in a very selfless act, she makes the hard choice and severs the connection. What we have right here is the recipe for a great companion in a Zelda game. Midna is actually involved in the story, both through her goals and also her character development. Her and Link's relationship is the main one in the story. Sure, they kind of use each other, but they also grow to care about each other as well. Could you say that for Navi? No. Can you say that for the King of Red Lions? No. Can you say that for Fi? I don't think so. When it comes to examining the design of Midna, we've got twice the work this time. Fortunately, neither of these is especially complex. First things first, I'm noticing that there are some weird inconsistencies between the two. Most importantly, Imp Midna doesn't have any toes. You may not have noticed this when she was just on her own, but when put right next to her true self, Imp Midna is a little bit pudgy. Due to her oversized head, which makes her look rather cartoony, the rest of her body is altered to fit the oversized proportions. If Midna had simply been made into a smaller version of her true self, without these chubby exaggerations of her form, she would have likely just looked like a small child. Instead, by stretching her proportions, it keeps her sense of authority, while also making her stand out from the rest of Twilight Princess's realistic world. On the other hand, true Midna's body is a bit more traditional. From her headpiece, stylized hair, cloak, and pretty revealing half-dress, she gives off the air of a foreign princess. While she does look great, I'm not really a big fan of the way her hairpiece, hood, and hair interact. It's almost impossibly complex, so much so that you'll be pretty hard-pressed to find a cosplayer that can accurately replicate it. Overall, I don't think that the design of her true self is nearly as strong as her imp self, but they both accomplish what they set out to do, which is to make Midna stand out as a unique and otherworldly figure. Now that we've examined her story, personality, and design, let's put it all together and see what we've got. Midna is by far the most complex of Link's companions, and after examining her in detail, it's really not any wonder why she's so beloved. It's made clear early in the story that she has her own stake in this adventure, and the way that it unravels and develops her character is the highlight of the entire game for me. In addition to this, we have a top-notch designed character which both embodies and surpasses the world that she inhabits. With all of these touches combined, it's no surprise that this is something that Nintendo has not replicated since. And it's no wonder, because elevating a side character to this level is actually a pretty risky move. If you do it poorly, you get a frustrating character that people would rather forget. But if it is done right, and in this case I think it was done perfectly, you will get an eternally unforgettable companion. Midna, ladies and gentlemen. As always, I'd like to thank everyone who supports me on Patreon, including my top patrons Corey Mosdy and Austin Lau. And until next time, everybody, I hope you take care.